This is More Than Reality podcast, where we dive into all things faith, family, and marriage and share that there is so much more than the reality that you see on the surface. Welcome to More Than Reality with Adam and Danielle Busby.
What's up, guys?
Welcome back.
What episode is it, babe?
37.
This is More Than Reality, episode 37.
Boom.
Good job.
My brain fog is getting better and better. Sometimes.
I was about to ask you in the intro. I'm like, no, I'm going to put her on the spot. And I didn't feel like muting the mics on the intro.
What's up?
So.
Happy birthday, Adam. His birthday was yesterday.
Yep. I told Danielle, she's like, what do you want to do for your birthday?
He's like, nothing. I'm like, that's lame.
I'd rather be low key. I feel like we've just been, so we've made, I guess it's kind of been about the same. Like we've been in like full on like house mode the past few weeks now. Trying to like.
I love how you like.
Look. What?
Like you jump on a mic and you just like, I'm just going to tell all.
No, we've been looking for a while, seeing like what the options are. Then
I
just
think when
doing
I want to have a
stuff.
serious conversation with you, I just need to sit you with a mic.
Do stuff
even
like
if it's not recording.
Been doing stuff like around the house just to get our house like ready to show and stuff like that, and like all the odd jobs and stuff that just from traveling and stuff you just don't get a chance to do. And so ever since coming back from May, trying to tackle all these like little projects and like stuff that like stands out, like, oh, I've been meaning to do that but hadn't had a chance to do it, especially like looking down the road in pretty much the very near future, potentially like putting our house on the market and stuff like that. And
whoa, drop the bomb. Like you're just bringing it straight out there.
I mean, I feel like we've said that last week.
Last episode, I remember you kind of bringing it up, and I'm like, whoa, we can't talk about that yet. We haven't shared with the family.
Yeah, we did have a conversation.
And then we had the family conversation.
Saturday? Was it Saturday?
Friday.
Friday or Saturday? Yeah. We had the whole family over.
It's gotten so hard to just like get together. We were like every week, we used to have like family dinner with my sisters and kids. And it used to kind of was like a routine of like Sunday evening, like Sunday late afternoon or whatnot. We used to kind of always get together or find a Saturday. But I mean, I feel like it's getting harder as all the kids are getting older because they're getting more like separated, and like the sports life is like real.
Yeah.
Like as you get older, I guess it's more intense. I don't know. But
I mean, it's just summer. So, you know, during summer, that's like a lot of that stuff like picks up a lot. And so it's just harder to get together and coordinate as a family because there's like so many other things on schedules and stuff that you have to navigate with. And so, you know, we finally like, hey, everybody's free this one night. Let's get together. And it just happens to be like a few days before my birthday. And we're like, well, you know, let's just go ahead and make it like kind of like a birthday thing, just because like, okay, when are we going to get together?
We're not going to see y'all on Tuesday. There's no way.
So we did that. We did like cake, and I smoked a brisket.
It's real. That's your love. What you love to do as a 40-year-old man, smoke meat.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you need that on a shirt or something. I'm 40. Smoke meat.
Yeah.
It was good.
Picked up a brisket, put it on the smoker for like 17 hours. That Traeger makes things so simple, just because you can just set it and go to sleep.
Set it and forget it.
Yeah.
Isn't that a commercial or something?
Just make sure it's full of pellets, and just makes it nice. You just wake up in the morning, it's right where you need it to be. Woke up in the morning, wrapped it up, put it back on the smoker for the rest of the day. And it was like, I think I planned the timing almost perfectly so that, like with meat and stuff, yeah, like the cook is important and the smoke is important, but like letting the meat rest is very important also.
I'm so glad you're sharing this with me.
So I have like a little sleeping bag for my meat.
Oh my gosh. That's what that thing was.
Like an insulated sleeping bag so it can rest.
Man, you really love this meat.
But, I mean, a lot of people will stick it in an ice chest.
After they cook it?
I don't want my meat sitting in an ice chest though.
Oh, but then I don't want
no, not cold, but
yeah,
because like my Yeti ice chest and stuff will keep things cold or hot. It just insulates. But like I don't want my ice chest smelling like meat because if you put like ice and stuff there, to eat with, like
you have meat flavored ice.
Yeah, I don't have just like. I would consider like a throwaway ice chest for just like, hey, let me rest my meat.
I don't think you know how to throw anything away.
I mean, anything that just sits in the garage, though, it's like Texas heat. It just gets to it after a while. And so I end up throwing it out.
I'm looking at Gus laying outside this door.
He's like, rub my belly.
Rub my belly, but the girls put a little blue bear in his arms, and it looks like he's hugging it. And take a picture.
Yeah, so... This weekend, smoked a big brisket, came out perfect. And then we celebrated birthday, and then we did it again last night. And just like out of the blue, like I went to the gym, and I'm like, like what can I throw on the smoker? What meat can I
smoke today?
What can I throw in the smoker just to have it ready for tonight? So I did some beef dino ribs because those are like just so simple.
Is anybody grossed out about ribs besides me? Like, I don't like the fact that it's a rib. Like, it's gross. So when you took all the meat off the bone and you got rid of the bone, I was like, okay, now it looks like a brisket.
Yeah.
But it was good. I like the brisket better.
Yeah.
But
I was going to give the bones to the dog, but I just don't like them smelling like.
Well, also, we don't want Bo...
I know.
Having diarrhea all over the house.
Bo has tummy issues.
Yeah. He takes after his mama.
So we have to pay attention to what he puts in his mouth.
Yeah. Gus on the other end he thinks everything Adam cooks is for him.
Oh my gosh. Like you do anything in the kitchen, like go to open, like it's just like a random like Ziploc bag. Like you get something in the mail and he's like, ooh, food.
Treat.
And he just comes running. He's such a mooch.
Yeah.
Or you get near the microwave and he comes running.
Yeah. He's like, this is for me.
Yeah. Because the girls trick him and they'll like.
So do you.
He thinks that he's not allowed to. It's almost like he's like the submissive one between him and Bo. And so he doesn't like to eat while Bo's eating. And so he'll just sit by his dog bowl and wait for Bo to finish and whimper. And so the girls will try to entice him to eat faster. And so they'll trick him.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll go up, they'll put his food in his bowl and then they'll walk up to the counter and then grab like a spoon and act like they're putting something in the bowl and they'll stick it in the microwave for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And then he's all excited about it.
Like,
and then walk up.
Like,
dang it, I've been tricked again.
Yeah. All right. So you're 43 now. What is your, what would you like to see happen this year in 43 years?
I mean, just like in the same vein of like what we've kind of been wrestling with a change and stuff, and just like getting more into that, like what this change is in our life and our family, potentially like our location, like where we end up, just to get like settled and get into a routine in a new location potentially, and like kind of focus on like purpose and stuff. I mean, it's always, wrestling with something new. Like I want to get
so much
like
new
fast forward to like, okay, it's real now. We're here. We're settled. Like, what does this new life look like in a sense? And get settled into this new chapter. I'm looking forward to that. Not looking forward to all the stuff that needs to be done in order to get there. But I'm excited about it. It's kind of put me in this like weird, I mean, maybe that's why I wasn't wanting to like do much for my birthday. I just feel like, man, there's just so much and like rolling around in my head that I feel like needs to be done. Like I don't want to just do something.
Hey, do you remember like a couple months ago when I came in here and I was like, hey, I think we need to sell the house. And you're like, get out of my office. We ain't selling. We ain't moving.
Get out of my office. Get out of here, woman.
You're like working on, I'm like, hey.
You're freaking crazy.
Yeah, you are like, you're crazy. We ain't selling this house. And then look where we are.
I mean, it has been.
Thinking about probably trying to wrap our minds around.
I probably haven't wanted to admit it to you, but it's been in my mind for a while. Like, I feel like this is, but like I wrestle with that in my head of like, man, in order for this to happen, like I don't look forward to like all the stuff that needs to be done in order to do that. And so like, I'm just like, oh no, I don't want to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's been,
and then I just kind of like block it out. But like, it's been like stirring in me that this just isn't the place for us right now. And, you know, I did envision this house being, you know, for a while, like our forever home. And, you know, whether it was like making the changes to this house that we needed to or whatnot, just eventually we would get to that. But like now it's just like, okay, I don't think this is where.
Yeah.
So, you know,
accepting that.
Yeah. Just accepting it. I don't really like change.
I mean, who really likes change?
And so I just realized that's why it's like darker in here.
Oh man. I like have a headache. So I was enjoying like the dimmer light. I definitely wasn't going to say anything.
It was like shooting past us.
Do we look so much better now?
I still didn't push it back far enough.
Man, we look so much better now.
Like all the way back in the corner.
Maybe that's why I said, did you move the chairs? Because I felt like that was like over our heads.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think like, I don't think anyone really loves change, but I know that like, I feel like if I'm honest, like there's a difference between like discernment and like a feeling of a step forward that I receive faster or quicker than you. And I can make a decision quicker than you on a lot of things because you analyze and process. Yeah. And then we get in a fight because you don't answer my questions when I just had a simple question. I like to
fully think something through rather than like just act on it.
Yeah. But that might take like 14 months. And sometimes we don't have enough time for that.
Yeah, I mean, our life is so fast paced.
You don't take time to put enough focus on constantly. You dwell on it, but you don't try to overcome what could the change look like and how would you get there? Yeah. And I'm the opposite where I'm like, you know, I work better under like, I can make decisions quick, work better under stress, like high level, and I can make like quick decisions that are normally pretty healthy decisions. But I also feel that like in times when so like if we're talking about this whole change and moving and how like whatever is next, I feel like I stay more in tune with my spirit quicker in looking for where I've learned over this last year to like really trust in the spirit to kind of like guide me and lead me. And I think as I look back at months ago when that popped in my head and it was something that just came up to me on my phone and it was like, it started, I see that as like a God moment, like, hey, I would have never ever thought about us like moving or selling, but like I'll get like a vision or like see something be like, we should possibly process this or talk about this. And so I bring it to you at really impromptu times that you're ready to focus on.
Yeah. Like but we found like a couple houses that would look like really good. And then they like whenever
hold on. I'm
like
saying
things like kind of fall through the crack, or like not fall through the crack. Things
don't pan out. Like
it just doesn't pan out.
It's not
like,
working out.
Like once we start like kind of seriously processing it, all of a sudden you get a call like, oh, they have an offer or it's under contract. And you're like, okay.
Well, listen, I'm bringing that up. The fact that we process and think and discern differently, because I know that there's a lot of relatable couples that can understand that.
Well, I mean, with me, I feel like I try to focus on like the here and now and present, because especially with like everything that happened with Grace and B, I feel like there's so much more that I like, more weight that falls on me, that it adds a lot of pressure. And so I'm, so then it becomes, with me thinking about a change, I'm thinking about, oh, but I still have to continue to maintain all this other stuff. And so it just seems so overwhelming to me, because like I get really overwhelmed or worked up about like, yeah, this needs to be done. And then I'll end up talking myself out of it, because I'm like, well, but I got to still keep all these other balls in the air. And it just like, I get really overwhelmed, like with all the other things that need to be done. I don't know. It's just, it falls. I feel like there's a lot more weight on like everything that I'm doing right now.
Yeah. And that's where we talk about like how we process and think differently and communicate differently, and how I can like, how I'm a verbal processor. So I need to like hear myself talk through things, and you're an internal processor. So you internalize that, and the communication of not wanting to communicate is more natural to you.
Yeah.
So it's more of a challenge for you to, one, process it in a fashion that, could lead to a decision maybe sooner than it needs to be, or maybe not, but then the communication of, as you're getting older, since we're talking about your birthday and whatnot, like you really got to focus on like, when I'm feeling these ways, or when I'm feeling these overwhelming thoughts, I have to share it with my wife, because she can help with quicker discernment and decision making and those things. But so I'm saying this to say, like, the people who are listening who can relate to our communication styles opposite, we process differently. We can't, like, it's just a fight. It's just a struggle constantly throughout things. And there's a lot of things that we do really well together, that we partner well when it's parenting or discipline or like a lot of things. But when it comes to the high level of like, when you overall look at like this umbrella of like our life, that's overwhelming. But you just got to like dissect it and say like, okay, let's process and talk about this one part, and not think of all of it.
Like as husbands, fathers, there is an element of like, we carry heavy things, as a man, as a provider, as the husband, like we carry heavy things that we don't want to burden our wife or our family about. And that's why we like kind of, I think it's like across the board with like a lot of men in general, like you're more stoic. You keep things to yourself because you don't want to overburden, with all the things that you have to be responsible for and think about. Like I don't want to overburden you. I don't want to put that on you, so I just hold it in and keep it tightly.
That's a you thing. That's a male thing.
That's like a provider thing. That's like it's our responsibility to like carry, like shoulder those heavy things and those burdens, and you don't want to, unload. And so like I do it very, in a sense, like strategically, like I don't want to just like unload on you, because I don't want you to feel that.
But God created woman
as a helper.
So as the man in the role, and I agree, a lot of men are like this, feel like they have to carry that burden. But God gave you a helper, and God gave you a wife to carry those things with, because you can't do this life alone. I can't do this life alone. And we've been placed together to walk this life alone. So what you carry, I carry, and what I carry, you carry. And so it's getting to a level of like, how do we carry it together instead of being overwhelmed because I don't want to overwhelm you. No, if you're overwhelmed, I'm going to be overwhelmed, and we're going to work together because now we're a team. We're a team to accomplish this next task together, because you can't make all the basic decisions for the family, and I can't either. We have to come together. And that's why when we look at like parenting and discipline stuff, like we know that those are all new things as we approach level. And so we're just like, hey, like we come to each other. But why, when we look at the overarch of like the family, we may struggle to say like, yeah, but that, or yeah, but that. I don't want to tell him. I don't want to tell her. I don't want to tell him. It's like, really, we're putting that on our own self when God says you are bonded through marriage and this is your companion and you are to do life together. And that means carrying each other's weight. So whenever, I mean, we talked about this in our whole family series at church, like we walk, when you hurt, I'm going to hurt. And when I hurt, you should be hurting, because we're going to hurt together and we're going to be happy together and we're going to cry together and we're going to have joy together and blah, 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 all the things. But, it's that stigma of, and we've talked about this in the past too, like how we grew up and like, Southern life, and like men hold their lives together and they're strong. And it's like, come on, like the more, I think the more vulnerable that a husband can be, the more the more deeper connection, which causes more of like, what do you call that word? Like, drawing a blank. But so here's an example of what attracts a woman to a man, what attracts a man to a woman. There's this level of what I think is there's some form of confidence. There's a level of confidence of who I am in Christ, who I am in my work, who I am as a spouse, who I am as a parent. And those things come as a confidence, because when you can use those and say like, I'm confident in that, in my weakness, I still know that I need you. And there's something that's so attractive about that, knowing that like I can come to you in a vulnerable state and not be ashamed of that. And so like changing that world of like, how do men get comfortable doing that? Because men don't need men, but they need relationships of people encouraging and lifting them up. And that's community. Like we all need that. We've talked about that a lot. But it is definitely a relatable topic that I think a lot of marriages can relate to with, one is A, one is B, and we're not going to do anything unless we're A, B together. And to me, that's the beautiful part of marriage. And like, how do you keep that together? And all the things that we've walked through in the almost 20 years of marriage, it's like we've always had like this one bond. And that's been the center of like keeping Christ in the center. And even whenever you don't want to fight, or even when you don't want to push forward and go, like there's like a conviction and like this overwhelmingness that like, we know that's not what God wants for us. And that is something that you have to think outside of yourself. Like, it's not just about me and my feelings. It's about, how do I feel this way? And how are we going to deal with it going forward,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think a big part of that is just getting into like the stress and the worry of the burden of the hard things, in those times, like strengthen yourself in the Lord and dive deep into, like in order to be able to discern better. I think that's like our calling, to show our wives like our strength through that, and just getting stronger in the word and in your walk and in your prayer life through that. That's gonna bring confidence, because in that God has showed us what he is capable of. I mean, you look at all the stories of like things that God has carried people through, and look in your own life of like what God has carried me through, and like the insurmountable things in our lives that we thought were terrifying and scary and stuff like that. And looking back on it, you're like, man, that was like such a great time. Like, look what God did. But in the moment, in that, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
And just instead of dwelling on like the fear and, the anxiety of what has to be done, and getting caught up in just like the worry and fear and anxiety, to, lean into the faith and look at the promises that God has given us, in those times. I'll never leave you or forsake you. Strengthen yourself in the Lord, and, he will carry you through. He is like our helper. He goes before us through those times, and, and nothing is too big or too small for him. And I think a lot of times, you get caught up. I know I do personally get caught up in, this. I feel like I'm selfish. I'm being selfish by worrying about this or asking God for something, because like this is something probably so small and insignificant to God. Like with all the things going on in the world, all the things going on with everyone else, like why would he care? It's almost like I don't want to,
you almost don't want to burden God.
Make God mad at you for like worrying about something so insignificant. But, that's not what the Bible teaches. That's a lie. He wants
God
you.
Wants to know, like he wants you to come to him.
He wants you to cast your cares on him. And bring those things to him. Bring him your burdens. He's close to the brokenhearted and, people that are struggling and stuff. And I think it's just in those times you have to remind yourself, no, nothing is too insignificant for him. He wants you to draw near. He wants you to depend on him. And I think, a big part of like our journey over the last months is just, he wants to grow like this sense of dependence on him, and to show like, look what I can do for you. And, in these scary times, in these tough times, and in these seasons of doubt where, we may feel like, oh, well, we did this and we tried this and we failed. The devil and, the enemy wants you to doubt yourself and to doubt like what you're capable of. And, and that's just a lie.
Yeah. And it's hard to get yourself by yourself out of those seasons of when you're feeling anxiety and fear and weighted with like something heavy. And I think there's nothing more beautiful than like, finding someone to talk to, whether that is a good friend, someone sound Christian, or someone at a church, or a therapist, like whatever it might be, like helping process those thoughts, really help ease your anxiousness. And, God can bring peace amongst any situation. And, I just walked through in like this past weekend at church and just feeling an overwhelming sense of peace about this change of moving. And it's been kind of like looking at all these different options, and then God just like totally like hounded in and was like, because I think I've been mostly worried about like Blake starting high school and like, is she going to have to switch schools?
I
like,
mean,
what's so much, do?
Like a change is so much easier with the Quints because they always have each other.
Yeah.
You know, you start a new school or whatever, they're more than likely there's going to be at least one sister in the class with them. And so like they always have each other. They're like this little wolf pack. And, you know, they're always going to be able to walk through this. And, you know, if they're feeling down or whatever, they can always go back to their sister because they're just right there. I mean, even yesterday, like 2 of the girls are at one friend's house, 2 of the others are at another. Hazel was with another friend, and they ended up like the 4, you know, ended up spending the night somewhere. And then Hazel, you know, they were out all day and did a bunch of fun stuff. And then, but she wasn't spending the night. And then she came home, and like I was in my office working whenever she got home, and she comes to me and she's like,
I'm bored.
She's just looking around. She's like, I don't know what to do. Because she's used to having her sisters there.
Yeah.
And, you know, that brings like this sense of comfort. And, you know, there's always something going on with them that keeps them occupied and stuff. But then you have Blake that is, quote unquote, the other one, you know, that's set apart from them. And she's going to be starting, whether we were moving or not, she's starting a new school next year. And that's what we've been struggling with is like, you know, this move is pretty inevitable. I feel like God is moving us to
a different
location, which we would be going to different schools. And, you know, just battling with that, you know, do we buy a house? Do we rent somewhere? Do we rent here? Do we rent there before finding some, you know, a potential home over there? And then just like wrestling with that of like, we want this process to be as easy on Blake as possible, even though it's going to be hard. You know, she's going to have to put herself out there. She's going to have to make new friends in a new location and a new school. But next year, whether she's here and we're still in this house or still in this town or in another, she's still starting a new school.
Yeah.
But we don't want to, you know, if we're going to do this, you know, we would prefer to do this before school starts next year, where she can start school in a new school
with all the other new kids starting that school in ninth grade.
Because in high school, you know, if it feeds in and it funnels in all these other middle schools around the area, and you know that circle becomes very much bigger, and the same thing's going to happen whether she's here or there, and. You know, so she's going to be starting school with all these new kids. We don't want to start school at one school and she's having to get used to that change. And all of a sudden we then uproot her and put her in another big location where she's doing that all over again. And so we've been wrestling with that and struggling with that. And I know she's struggling with that just because, I mean, she's a teenager. Yeah. She isn't seeing very far. She's, you know, thinking with her emotions for sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, just worrying about, well, my friends are here. And like, but Blake, you know, anybody we talk to that has moved a lot as a child or parents have moved them, you know, they look back on that and like, oh, well, I moved, you know, when I was in middle school, or I moved multiple times whenever I was in high school. And you know what? I look back on that and everything was fine. Mm-hmm. But as a kid, like you don't see that right now. Like,
and that's why we as parents have to.
She just worries about her friends right now, and like, well, my friends are right here.
And this is what's hard as a parent is that we don't want to upset our children. We don't want to you know, we don't necessarily want to take her away from what she's built here and whatnot. However, we as the parents have to make the overall decision what is best for this family, and we can't base it off of 6 girls' opinions. You know, it's like we are superior. God is giving them to us, and we have to steward and show them and guide them and lead them. And we look to the Lord to guide us, which therefore is how we're going to lead our children. And it's very hard to tell your kids no, or this is what the change is going to be, and we're not quite sure yet, but you know, this is what we feel like God's like telling us to do and what change we need to make. And it's hard, but I did tell her about, you know, how I was emotional at church and like how I just really felt this sense of peace and like God, like audibly telling me like it's going to be okay. And that was just like, I mean, I lost it. I kind of like overwhelming sense of peace, and like those words being like spoken to me, like literally like someone told me in my ear.
Yeah. Like, I know, like I know you're wrestling with that. I know it's a burden.
Yeah.
And then he just like spoke that.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, like, I just feel so much better about knowing that whatever school she's going to go to, she will be okay. And so I shared that with her to tell her, like, you know, a lot of times we have to lean into our faith to make a decision, even though it might not be the decision we want. I said, but I'm telling you that, like, I'm telling you this to hopefully encourage you to find peace too with the decisions that we're making as a family, because I have a peace about it right now. And I know that, you know, God's not going to lead us into destruction. And, you know, we might have trials, we might have a change, we might have a, you know, have to make new friends or adjust something. But like, I'm telling you, because I have peace with this, I want to encourage you to know that like you are going to be okay. And I believe that it's going to be better than what it is right now. Yeah. I believe that. And, you know, but it's as a parent, you know, we have to try our best to make the hard decisions, even if our kids don't agree with us. And it's super, super challenging to deal with what the outcome of your children's responses might be. But as the parents, and knowing that like we are the leaders of the family, like God is leading us to lead these children into, like, teach them into, you know, if we need to make a change for the family, like this is not something that, like, you know, and I tell the people that know about this, we tell them, like, do you really think this family of 8 wants to get up and pack up everything and move? Absolutely not. But we really do feel like this is something God has spoken to us and like is telling us, like, hey, it's time to, I don't know what the word is, like, it's time for a new, and I'm taking you away from what you've created here in this house. This isn't the forever place for y'all. And we have something new. And we are literally leaning in on faith, because like, we don't know what that is. Yeah. We have some things that we're working on, but like, it is a very scary place to like sell everything, sell your house, move somewhere, not knowing if we should rent or buy. And we're just looking at all options and just praying like, okay, God, if this is what it is, then we're going to trust that this will pan out. And that's what we're doing. And it's hard to have it together and to be mom and dad, to still do this with a bunch of little girls. And, you know, they have questions, all these things. And it's very difficult, but we're trying to prepare them and bring them in on, you know, this is hard. We don't necessarily want to do this, but we really feel like, you know, God wants this for our family. And we're just going to continue to follow that path, whatever it might be. We don't know what's next, and we have to accept that. And we believe that if we follow the path that God leads us down, then that's the path that we will lead to, you know, the beauty of more than we could ever imagine. Yeah. And we've walked that path a little bit in our life and have to remind ourselves of our own testimony of being able told, no, you're not going to make it. No, you can't have these children. No, they're not going to survive. To just say, hold on, like, our God is bigger, and like we're gonna take a chance and step into our faith and say, we're gonna try. Yeah. And you know, the outcome has been beautiful.
Yeah. Like our church that we go to here in Houston, it's One Life Church, Houston. They have a really good series going on right now that's been it's been such a blessing to us, because a lot of the feelings and thoughts and direction, I feel like that we've been wrestling with ourselves. It's been almost like confirmation, like of God, just like, hey, you know, and like every message over the last few weeks, it's just been like such a blessing to us, because it's like, man, this is like exactly what, you know, we've been wrestling with, the things that we've been struggling with. And you know, just worrying about, you know, the series right now is called like Family Legacy, and just like what that looks like. You know, we've been, you know, just super blessed by, you know, this series that's going on. And I mean, we can possibly like link it in the show notes or whatever, because they put it in podcast form. So if you guys are, you know, thinking about stuff like this along those same lines of like what we're dealing with, like worrying about like your kids and your marriage and like what, you know, this
what like, is family like? How do you have like a
strong marriage, a strong family,
you know, and
family, and you know that whole structure, and you know the things that like the Bible teaches about families and like what we should be focused on most. It's just been really good. It's been really good for us and good confirmation for the thoughts and the things that we've been wrestling with. And so, it's been really good. I feel like God's just been working and moving and speaking to us and confirming some of the things that we've been wrestling with ourselves. And it's just been perfect timing, really.
Yeah. I mean, happy birthday, Adam. Just went on a little good chit chat about family and change and how we deal with, you know, making decisions. And, you know, sometimes we can make quick decisions. Sometimes we can need time to process and think about it. But ultimately, we want to lean into our faith and pray and ask God to like reveal, you know, what is best for us and how do we follow that journey. And so hope this spoke to some of you, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, this is episode 37 of More Than Reality podcast. Thank you guys for sticking around and just like hearing our thoughts, and hopefully, you know, you picked up something that, you know, spoke to you through this and helping you through whatever you're dealing with right now. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.
All right. We love you guys.